Go. Hello.
Hi.
It's almost over, everybody. Yay.
Yay. So we are doing Chapter 9, Case 1, the disaster at the Denver International Airport. I am Laura Russman.
I'm Jacob Vasquez. Hi, everybody. So, yeah. And should we say it like a little bit more like intense, like disaster at Denver International Airport?
Yes.
Yes.
You can add some
Yeah.
stuff to our presentation,
Like explosion. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and it was a disaster, not like a plane.
It was.
It's just a business disaster. So
So essentially, Denver International Airport tried to put in a new system for their bagging that would basically robots would automatically send everything in. There was, unmanned, like the carts, the baggage, I don't know what they're called, that transfer all the bags from one.
baggage haulers.
Yes, so that take them from the actual physical building of the airport to the airplane and load them up. And so they tried to put through this whole system so that they didn't need as many staff, because that's always the big thing that they
They
go
don't
for.
want those people working. They make too many mistakes.
Yes, and then so what happened was it couldn't handle it. Bags being like ruined in the system. They were being put into the wrong planes or the wrong, getting sent. Basically, it was a mess.
Yeah, it was also destroying luggage too. So that was another benefit too. So not only was it losing luggage, it was actually crunching bags, ripping bags open, because apparently robots don't like to do baggage. So we found they
Right.
so
It was rough.
it was rough. Yeah. So that was the
And
disaster.
it cost the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars to fix, because it took, I think it was 16 months
Hmm.
fix the situation. So there was a price per day that added up to a
Yeah.
lot of money for taxpayers in Denver.
And they're one of those rare people that actually did that accounting, because a lot of organizations in the public sector will not do that exact accounting of how it affected everything up and down the line. So, I mean, kudos to them for at least spending the time to actually cost out how bad it was. So,
Yeah.
well, what caused it?
So, first question, one problem with DIA's baggage system was inadequate testing. So why is testing important to a project's success, and why do many projects decide to skip the testing phase?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why is they just need it done. It's that whole we have to have a solution now, versus the fact that it does cost money to spend time testing. It does cost time to do testing. And the worst thing that can happen is you do a bunch of testing, you find out it doesn't work, but then you're not actually getting jammed up later down the line with something that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I can speak to this one, my organization, because currently we implemented a new business operational software that we didn't really test. Only our project manager saw it. We never saw it until it was rolled out to us. But unfortunately, because that individual did not do enough testing on it, it could not meet the demands of our business. And now we have to just make it happen. And it's really frustrating, because if we would have all just spent the time testing the system and vetting it, we would not be where we are right now. So
Right.
it's just a bummer. Inadequate
Yeah.
testing just makes you sad. So
Yeah, it's bad. All right. The next one. So evaluate the different system development methodologies. Which one would have most significantly increased the chances of the project's success? So I think we both agreed that Agile is just kind of a really great methodology to use. And this is something I can speak on a little bit. So I work for a credit union, and when we were looking for a new online banking platform, I was chosen as one of I want to say there was a group of about 20 people to do testing on the platform before it ever, went live to anybody. And so, we had spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of all the different things they wanted us to test on. And it was just this constant communication between ourselves and the IT department saying like, hey, you know what, I was doing this and it worked perfectly, but then when I did this, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. And it was a long testing phase. I want to say it was 6 to 8 months with all those people doing all these different aspects of it, not including all the background programming and everything that I had to do. But it was very, you know, when we put it out to everybody, I mean, people were still mad because we changed something. But
people don't like change. It makes them angry.
Yeah, they don't at all. And it was almost all the bugs were taken care of. You know, there were still things here and there that would come up because of, you know, the amount of money somebody had in their account, or like just little things that we weren't able to test on, you know, every single aspect. But it was pretty smooth sailing because we took so long testing so many areas of it to make sure it worked.
Well, that's the whole thing about being agile. I mean, I think we discussed it amongst ourselves that it should be just called common sense methodology, because it's doing the things that make sense, which is, you know, taking the time. We act like we don't have enough time in business these days to do things the right way, and really, you have to spend that time. And if you don't, you put yourself in a bad situation like I have versus what you have.
Right.
For the organization. So, yeah. So agile methodology as opposed to just bad methodology.
Correct.
Ooh, I'm going to go hide for one. I'm going to go over
here. Right. So how could more time spent in the analysis and the design phase saved Colorado taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars? I would say kind of what we already went over. You know, if they would have tested, they would have realized the system wasn't going to work. And instead of scrapping the old system and just throwing this new one in, hoping that it would work, they could have fixed the errors or learned ahead of time that it wasn't going to, and just not done the project. But instead, they scrapped the old, put in the new, and it took them, you know, almost 1.5 years to get it back on track, which is what cost so much money.
I feel like you're personally pointing out my situation. Are you sure you're talking about? Because that's exactly.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
That's exactly what's happening with us. You know, now that we've gone fully invested in a system that can't handle the simplest of tasks, which are invoicing customers or even emailing customers correctly. You know, all of a sudden you look at a system that we have to just keep on just treading water on, and we know we're going to have to replace it. But, you know, it takes almost 3 times as much time to do anything in the system than it did previously. And we were working off a Microsoft Access database from 1998. And that was a better system than this really fancy just, you can change the color scheme. It's really nice. But that's the whole thing is that, yeah, there's tax dollars in terms of the initial cost investment for a product, but really where the tax dollars really get eaten up is in the lost time, the lost efficiency, in the man hours that go into operating a system that's not going to work. And, you know, that's one thing that people don't ever really talk about. Like, you'll see a project come up, it doesn't work, you just see that number, but behind that, it's so much more than people think it is. So, that's my favorite. I think that's my favorite picture yet.
Right. So this is why could BAE, so that was the company that has put together the system that DIA was using. So why could BAE not take an existing IT infrastructure and simply increase its scale and expect it to work?
Well,
so many reasons.
Well, I mean, we talked about in chapter 5, scalability, you know, and all that stuff. But, you know, I think we fall into make-a-wish mentality with things. You know, we just want it to happen, and we're just going to make it happen. And when you don't have the infrastructure to back it up, it's like, you know, in some cities, you know, where, you know, they have problems with parking. You know, they want to figure out all these ways to figure out the parking situations, but really the simplest thing to do is just to give people better transit options. You know, and you know, you can't fix it by just keeping with the same roads and everything else you got in there. You know, maybe you need to spend money on light rail. Maybe you got to do it.
Yeah.
All these things that cost money, but, a lot of times you just say, we can just make this happen, and it doesn't happen.
Right. And my example of it was kind of, in the physical world, if you have a machine that makes 500 products a day, and then you're like, hey, we need your machine to make 50,000 now, that machine's going to crash pretty quickly. You have to have it established in the system to be able to take on a larger scale. And if you don't, then it's not going to work,
Yeah. My sister makes cakes, and she's got one oven. So she can't make, 4 wedding cakes in one weekend because she's got one oven, So, common sense tells you don't book 4 cakes if you can only make one. And,
right.
And that's really just breaking it as simple as possible. It's really just, you either spend the money to get yourself to where you can move 50,000 units, or you just really do your 500 units well and just leave it. So,
yeah. Well, and tell them, you know what, we're not changing this until we can.
Yeah, because that's the one thing we have to all remember when we're in a business situation where we're changing, operational software or anything else. We're the customer.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go forward. You don't have to do anything. If it's not working, put your foot down. Don't just listen to them when they say, "Oh, we'll fix this," or we'll give you a solution eventually. It's like, no. Don't believe them. Don't believe them.
Well, yeah, you gotta. Yeah, it can be quite interesting when people don't take everything into consideration before they push something out.
Yeah. All right. So, woo!
There's our questions and answers.
There's so many words up there.
I know.
You
can pause it if they want to read through it.
You can, guys, and honestly, if you don't, we don't take it personally. There's a lot of reading we all have to do during the semester, so it's fine if you skip this portion. But yeah, so basically, what does it come down to? Test your systems. Don't go all in if you don't feel good about it. Basically, if it's not ready, don't take that chance. Don't do what my organization does and just jump right in and we'll figure it out later, because it never quite works out that way. Do like Laura's organization and spend the time. And do it the right way. So at that point, I guess we should say toodles, because we're done, right?
We're done. We're good.
Yeah, forever.
Our last presentation.
So sad.
All right. Well, have fun. Good luck on all your future endeavors, class.
Bye, guys.
Bye.